Sometimes the universe gives us exactly what we need, disguised as exactly what we want. Maya Castellanos stood in the rain outside the crumbling gas station on Route 95, her swollen belly pressing against the steering wheel of her rusted Honda, staring at the soggy raffle ticket that had just changed her life forever. 7 months pregnant, 3 days from eviction and $20 poorer than she could afford to be, yet somehow she'd just won a mansion worth $30 million. Will Smith's former Bel Air estate, abandoned and supposedly cursed, was now hers. But as Maya pushed open the mansion's heavy oak doors for the first time, the smell hit her immediately. Baby powder and vanilla, as if someone had been expecting her arrival. The foyer stretched endlessly upward, marble floors gleaming under crystal chandeliers, but it was the sound that made her blood freeze. A soft lullaby drifting from somewhere deep within the house, the same melody she'd been humming to her unborn daughter for months. How could an empty mansion know her most private song? And why did every room she entered feel like it had been designed specifically for her baby? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Maya's hand trembled as she pushed deeper into the mansion, her footsteps echoing against the marble like whispered warnings. The lullaby continued to drift through the air. Hush, little baby, don't say a word. Each note perfectly pitched, hauntingly familiar. She'd never heard it anywhere else, had never learned it from her mother or picked it up from a movie. It had simply appeared in her mind 3 months ago, complete and beautiful, as if her daughter had somehow taught it to her from the womb. The living room stretched before her like a cathedral, all soaring ceilings and floor-to-ceiling windows that should have let in the October afternoon light. Instead, heavy curtains blocked most of the sun, casting everything in a golden twilight that made the dust motes dance like tiny spirits. Designer furniture sat perfectly arranged, as if the previous owners had simply vanished mid-conversation. Maya pulled out her phone to call the raffle company. Surely there had been some mistake, but found no signal. The screen showed full bars outside, but here, in this beautiful tomb, nothing. She slipped the phone back into her jacket pocket, the one with the hole near the zipper that she couldn't afford to fix. 3 days ago, she'd been Maya Castellanos, investigative journalist turned waitress at Delilah's Diner, serving coffee to truckers and construction workers who left dollar tips on $8 meals. Her press credentials had been revoked after the incident with Senator Morrison's campaign finance story, the one that had cost her everything when her source disappeared, and the evidence vanished overnight. Now she was just another single mother-to-be, struggling to make rent on a studio apartment where the heat barely worked and the neighbors played music until 3 in the morning. But this morning had been different. This morning, she'd stood in that gas station bathroom, staring at the eviction notice crumpled in her fist while her daughter kicked against her ribs, as if trying to escape the mess Maya had made of their lives. The $20 in her wallet was supposed to buy groceries, pasta, and the cheap tomato sauce that tasted like metal but filled the empty spaces in her stomach. Instead, she'd bought hope wrapped in a piece of paper that should have been worthless. "Mama's gonna buy you a mockingbird." The melody grew stronger as she climbed the curved staircase, her hand gripping the mahogany banister. Each step up seemed to take her further from the world she knew. The mansion felt alive around her, breathing with her, matching the rhythm of her heartbeat. Photos lined the walls, celebrities, politicians, faces she recognized from red carpets and magazine covers, but their eyes seemed to follow her progress, watching, evaluating. The first door she opened revealed a bedroom larger than her entire apartment, dominated by a 4-poster bed draped in silk, but it was the corner that stopped her cold. A rocking chair sat positioned by the window, still swaying slightly as if someone had just stood up. Beside it, a small table held a baby bottle filled with what looked like fresh milk. Maya backed out of the room, her breath coming faster. The rational part of her mind, the part that had once tracked down corrupt officials and exposed cover-ups, insisted there had to be an explanation. A caretaker, maybe. Someone maintaining the property who hadn't expected her to arrive so soon. But caretakers didn't explain the lullaby, or why the milk was still warm when she touched the bottle, or why the rocking chair moved in the exact rhythm she used when trying to soothe her daughter's restless kicks at night. The second floor held 6 more bedrooms, each one immaculate, each one containing some small sign of recent habitation. A book left open on a nightstand, reading glasses still warm on the pages. A coffee cup with steam rising from dark liquid. Fresh flowers in crystal vases, their petals perfect and unblemished. By the time she reached the 3rd floor, Maya's investigative instincts had fully awakened. Someone was playing an elaborate game, and she was either the target or the prize. The eviction notice in her pocket felt heavier with each step, a reminder of how desperate she'd been just hours ago. Desperate enough to buy a raffle ticket with grocery money. Desperate enough to believe in miracles. The lullaby had grown so loud now that it seemed to come from the walls themselves, wrapping around her like an embrace. "And if that mockingbird won't sing, Mama's going to buy you a diamond ring." Her daughter responded to the melody, rolling and stretching inside her as if she recognized it too. At the end of the hallway, one door stood slightly ajar, golden light spilling through the crack. Maya's hand hovered over the handle, every instinct screaming at her to turn around, to run back to her broken-down Honda and drive back to her failing life in Philadelphia. Instead, she pushed the door open. The nursery beyond was perfect in every detail, from the hand-painted murals of dancing bears to the mobile spinning slowly over an antique crib. But it was the photograph on the dresser that made her legs give out, an ultrasound image, identical to the one folded carefully in her wallet. The same profile, the same tiny fist pressed against her cheek, the same daughter who wouldn't be born for 2 more months. Maya's knees hit the nursery floor as the photograph stared back at her, impossible and undeniable. Her shaking hands fumbled for her wallet, fingers clumsy with disbelief, as she pulled out her own ultrasound image, the one Dr. Martinez had given her just 2 weeks ago during her routine appointment at the free clinic on Broad Street. Identical. Down to the smallest detail. The baby in both photos had the same delicate nose, the same curve of the skull, even the same position of her tiny hand against her face. Maya held the 2 images side by side, her vision blurring as tears gathered in the corners of her eyes. This was impossible. Ultrasounds were like fingerprints, unique, unrepeatable. The lullaby continued its gentle melody, but now it felt less like comfort and more like a countdown. Her daughter responded with a series of kicks, more agitated than Maya had ever felt her before. It was as if the baby could sense something wrong, some fundamental violation of the natural order that Maya's rational mind was still struggling to accept. She pulled herself up using the crib's edge, the polished wood smooth and warm beneath her palms. The mobile above spun lazily, casting dancing shadows across the pristine white sheets. Each hanging piece was hand-carved, a mockingbird, a diamond ring, a looking-glass, a billy goat. All the items from the lullaby that had been haunting her dreams for months. Maya's phone buzzed in her pocket. She grabbed it desperately, hoping for a signal, for some connection to the world that made sense. One bar flickered weakly in the corner of the screen, just enough for a single text message to come through. "Maya, where are you? Your shift started an hour ago. Lunch rush is killing me. Carmen." Reality crashed back like ice water. Carmen Rodriguez, her manager at Delilah's Diner, the woman who had given Maya a job when no one else would hire a disgraced journalist 7 months pregnant. Carmen, who covered for her when morning sickness made her late, who saved the day-old pastries so Maya could take them home instead of watching them get thrown away. Maya stared at the message, then at the impossible nursery around her. She was supposed to be at the diner right now, wearing her stained uniform and comfortable shoes, refilling coffee for Mr. Peterson, who came in every Tuesday for meatloaf and complained about his arthritis. She was supposed to be counting tips and calculating whether she had enough to buy both groceries and prenatal vitamins this week. Instead, she was standing in a mansion she'd supposedly won, in a nursery that shouldn't exist, holding an ultrasound that defied explanation. Her thumbs moved across the screen. Emergency came up. "We'll explain tomorrow. Sorry, The message failed to send 3 times before finally going through, the single bar disappearing completely afterward. Maya sank into the rocking chair beside the crib, the same chair that had been moving by itself in the bedroom downstairs. It fit her perfectly, the curve of the back supporting her aching spine, the arms positioned exactly right for cradling a baby. She'd been looking at rocking chairs online for weeks, adding them to shopping carts she never checked out, dreaming of the nursery she couldn't afford to create. The apartment she was about to lose didn't have room for a nursery anyway. The studio was barely large enough for her single mattress on the floor and the card table that served as both desk and dining room. She'd been planning to keep the baby in a bassinet beside her bed, had been saving for months to buy even the most basic supplies. The eviction notice gave her 6 days. 6 days to find a new place that would accept a pregnant woman with inconsistent income and a credit score destroyed by medical bills from her father's cancer treatment. 6 days to pack up the remnants of a life that had been slowly crumbling since she'd lost her job at the Philadelphia Inquirer. But this nursery, this was everything she'd dreamed of. The crib alone probably cost more than she made in 3 months. The hand-painted murals, the plush carpet, the custom mobile, it was the perfect room for her daughter. The room Maya stayed awake at night imagining but knew she'd never be able to provide. Her daughter kicked again, and Maya placed both hands on her belly, feeling the strong, reassuring movement. Whatever was happening here, whatever impossible circumstances had led to this moment, she couldn't deny the deep longing that the nursery awakened in her. This was what she wanted to give her child: beauty, comfort, security. The photograph on the dresser caught the light, and Maya forced herself to look at it again. The same face that had been growing inside her for 30 weeks. The same daughter who would need diapers and formula and doctor visits Maya couldn't afford. The same baby who deserved so much more than Maya's broken-down life could offer. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance, and Maya realized how late it was getting. Soon it would be dark, and she'd have to decide whether to drive back to Philadelphia and her failing world, or stay in this impossible place where someone, or something, already knew her daughter's face. The sound of a car door slamming echoed through the mansion like a gunshot, shattering the lullaby's spell. Maya's head snapped up from where she'd been resting it against the rocking chair, her heart hammering against her ribs. The mobile above the crib stopped spinning, its carved mockingbird frozen mid-flight. Footsteps crunched across gravel outside, deliberate, unhurried. Maya pushed herself up from the chair, her pregnant body awkward and unsteady as she moved to the nursery window. Through the sheer curtains, she could see a black sedan parked behind her Honda, its windows tinted dark enough to hide whoever sat inside. A man in an expensive suit stood beside the car, checking his phone. Even from the 3rd floor, Maya could see he didn't belong here any more than she did. His posture was too alert, too watchful. This wasn't someone lost or confused about directions. This was someone who had been looking for her. Her phone buzzed again. That single weak bar flickering back to life just long enough to deliver a message from a number she didn't recognize. "We need to talk. Don't be afraid." Maya's hands shook as she read the words. The same hands that had once held smoking guns metaphorically, that had confronted senators and CEOs with evidence of their crimes, were trembling like autumn leaves. The investigative journalist in her recognized the setup, the mysterious mansion, the impossible ultrasound, and now a stranger who somehow had her number. But the pregnant woman facing eviction, the one who hadn't eaten a real meal in 2 days, whispered something different. What if this was exactly what it appeared to be? What if someone was offering her the life she'd always dreamed of giving her daughter? Another car door slammed, then another. Maya pressed closer to the window and saw 2 more figures emerging from a second vehicle, a woman in a pristine white coat that looked medical, and another man carrying what appeared to be a briefcase. They moved with the practiced efficiency of people who had done this before. The lullaby had stopped completely now, leaving behind a silence so profound that Maya could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. Her daughter had gone still too, as if sensing the change in the air, the shift from wonder to something far more dangerous. Maya's mind raced through possibilities, each one more unsettling than the last. The raffle company had been called Celestial Gifts. She remembered the name from the ticket, remembered thinking it sounded more like a New Age store than a legitimate business. She'd been so desperate, so focused on the impossible hope the ticket represented, that she hadn't questioned why a gas station in North Philadelphia would be selling tickets for a Bel Air mansion. The ultrasound photograph still sat on the dresser, that impossible twin of her daughter's face, watching her with eyes that wouldn't open for another 10 weeks. Maya grabbed it, comparing it once more to her own copy. Not just similar, identical. The timestamp in the corner read 3 months ago, but Maya had been getting ultrasounds at the free clinic, and Dr. Martinez kept meticulous records. There was no way this image could exist, unless someone had been watching her, following her, documenting her pregnancy from the beginning. The front door of the mansion opened with a resonant boom that echoed up through all 3 floors. Maya heard voices, polite, professional, but with an undertone that made her skin crawl. They weren't breaking in, they had keys. "Mrs. Castellanos?" The woman's voice floated up the stairwell, warm and reassuring. "My name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I'm here to help you understand what's happening." Maya backed away from the nursery door, her mind spinning through options. The window was 3 stories up, and she was 7 months pregnant. Her phone had no signal. Her car keys were in her jacket pocket, but her car was blocked by theirs. "We know this must be confusing," the woman continued, her footsteps beginning to climb the stairs. "The mansion, the nursery, the photograph. But there's so much more we need to show you. So much more your daughter needs. Your daughter. Not the baby or your child, but the specific, intimate term that Maya herself had only started using in the past few weeks. They knew about her daughter. They knew about her specifically. Maya's hands instinctively moved to her belly, protective and defiant. Whatever was happening here, whoever these people were, her daughter was still hers, still growing safely inside her, still kicking with the strong, determined rhythm that had gotten them both through the worst months of Maya's life. The eviction notice crackled in her pocket as she moved, a reminder of the choice she faced. 6 days until she lost everything she had, which wasn't much. Or she could stay here, in this impossible place, and try to understand why someone wanted her badly enough to orchestrate this elaborate charade. The footsteps reached the 2nd floor, moving methodically from room to room. They knew where she was, probably had known from the moment she'd walked through the front door. This had all been planned, choreographed, designed specifically for her. The question was she walking into salvation or a trap? Maya pressed her back against the nursery wall, her breath coming in shallow gasps as the footsteps moved methodically through the 2nd floor. Each careful step below felt like a countdown, marking time until she'd have to make a choice that could change everything, or destroy what little she had left. 6 days. The eviction notice felt like it was burning through her pocket, a constant reminder of the deadline waiting back in Philadelphia. 6 days to find another apartment with her non-existent credit and shrinking savings account. 6 days before she and her daughter would be sleeping in her car, assuming the Honda lasted that long. But this, whatever this was, felt infinitely more dangerous than homelessness. "Maya?" Dr. Chen's voice drifted up from the 2nd floor, closer now. "I know you're scared. I understand completely. When I was pregnant with my first daughter, I would have done anything to give her a better life. That's all we want to offer you." The words hit like a physical blow. Maya's hands moved protectively to her belly, where her daughter's restless movements had finally stilled. Even the baby seemed to be holding her breath, waiting to see what her mother would decide. How do they know so much? The question circled through Maya's mind like a vulture. Her name, her pregnancy, her exact due date, even her phone number. The investigative journalist in her catalogued the red flags, the elaborate setup, the impossible ultrasound, the too-perfect nursery that matched every dream she'd confided only to herself during sleepless nights. But the desperate mother, to be whispered seductive possibilities. What if they were legitimate? What if this was some kind of charity program, a foundation that helped struggling pregnant women? Rich celebrities did stranger things with their money. Will Smith himself had been involved in education initiatives, hadn't he? Maya closed her eyes, trying to think through the fear. The raffle ticket had cost $20, her last $20. But what if it wasn't really random? What if someone had been watching her, tracking her desperate circumstances and decided to help? The timing was too perfect to be coincidence, arriving just when she needed it most. Or when you'd be most vulnerable, another voice warned. When you'd be willing to ignore obvious warning signs because the alternative is living in your car. The footsteps reached the third-floor landing, deliberate and unhurried. Maya could hear Dr. Chen's breathing just outside the hallway, could almost feel her presence through the walls. There was nowhere to run now, no escape route that wouldn't put her daughter at risk. "I know you found the photograph," Dr. Chen said softly. "I know how impossible it must seem. But Maya, what if I told you that everything you've been through, losing your job, the financial struggles, even finding that raffle ticket, what if none of it was coincidence?" Maya's blood turned to ice. The admission hung in the air like smoke, confirming her worst fears while simultaneously offering what sounded like answers. They had been watching her, following her, manipulating her circumstances to lead her here. But why? What could they possibly want from a broke, pregnant ex-journalist whose career had been destroyed by a story that hit too close to someone's secrets? Her daughter chose that moment to kick, a strong, defiant movement that reminded Maya she wasn't just making this decision for herself. Whatever these people wanted, whatever they were offering, there was another life to consider. A life that deserved safety, security, and a mother who wasn't so desperate that she'd walk blindly into obvious traps. Maya thought of Carmen at the diner, probably swamped with a lunch rush, wondering why her most reliable waitress had suddenly disappeared. She thought of her tiny apartment with its broken heater and paper-thin walls, the stack of unpaid bills on the card table that served as her desk. She thought of the job applications she'd sent out by the dozens, all returned with polite rejections or deafening silence. Then she looked around the perfect nursery, the hand-painted murals, the expensive crib, the mobile that played the lullaby she'd been humming to her daughter for months. This room represented everything she wanted to provide, and knew she never could. Not on her own. "Maya, may I come in? I have something I think you need to see." The voice was right outside the door now, patient but insistent. Maya realized she'd been holding her breath, her whole body tensed for fight or flight when neither option was really available. She was 7 months pregnant, trapped 3 stories up, with no phone signal and no backup plan. But more than that, she was curious. The journalist in her, the part that had once been fearless in pursuit of truth, wanted to understand what was happening. Who were these people? How had they orchestrated all of this? And what did they really want from her? The doorknob turned slowly, and Maya watched as Dr. Chen stepped into the nursery. A woman about her own age with kind eyes and steady hands, carrying a manila folder that looked thick with documents. "Hello, Maya," she said gently. "Are you ready to learn the truth about your daughter?" Maya's mouth went dry as she stared at Dr. Chen, her back still pressed against the nursery wall. The woman looked exactly like what central casting would order for a trustworthy doctor. Soft brown hair pulled back in a neat bun, laugh lines around intelligent hazel eyes, the kind of face that belonged on a hospital brochure. But Maya had interviewed enough criminals to know that monsters rarely looked the part. "The truth about my daughter?" Maya's voice came out smaller than she intended, barely above a whisper. Her hands moved instinctively to her belly, feeling the reassuring warmth of life growing inside her. "What do you mean?" Dr. Chen stepped further into the nursery, moving with deliberate slowness, like someone approaching a frightened animal. The manila folder in her hands was thick enough to contain a novel, its edges worn from handling. "May I sit?" she asked, gesturing to the ottoman beside the rocking chair. Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. Every instinct screamed at her to demand answers, to interrogate this woman the way she'd once grilled corrupt politicians. But those skills belonged to the person she'd been before her career imploded, before desperation became her constant companion. First, let me say that everything you're feeling right now is completely natural, Dr. Chen began, settling gracefully onto the ottoman. Confusion, fear, anger, I've seen it all before. She paused, studying Maya's face, but I've also seen relief, joy, hope. Before? The word escaped before Maya could stop it. You've done this before? A sad smile crossed Dr. Chen's features. Oh, Maya, you're not the first woman to find herself in impossible circumstances, facing choices no mother should have to make. She opened the folder, revealing what looked like photographs and medical records. And unfortunately, you won't be the last. Maya caught a glimpse of the top photograph, another ultrasound image, but not hers. This one showed twins, their faces clear and serene in the grainy black and white image. Beneath it, she could see the edge of another photo, and another, like a deck of cards shuffled through heartbreak. I don't understand, Maya said, though part of her was beginning to. The pattern was there, waiting in the shadows of her mind like a half-remembered nightmare. The raffle ticket wasn't random, Dr. Chen said quietly. The mansion isn't really abandoned. And your pregnancy... She hesitated, her professional composure flickering for just a moment. Your pregnancy is very special, Maya. More special than you know. The mobile above the crib began to turn again, though no breeze moved through the sealed room. The carved mockingbird caught the light, casting shadows that danced across Dr. Chen's face like flames. Maya watched, hypnotized, as her world tilted on its axis. The photograph on the dresser, Maya said slowly. My daughter's face. How did you... We've been monitoring your pregnancy from the beginning, Dr. Chen interrupted gently. From before the beginning, actually. From the moment conception occurred. Maya's knees gave out and she slid down the wall until she was sitting on the plush carpet, her hands pressed flat against her belly. The words didn't make sense, couldn't make sense, but they explained everything that had felt wrong about this place. Monitoring how? Dr. Chen leaned forward, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Maya, what's the last thing you remember from the night your daughter was conceived? The question hit like a slap. Maya's mind reeled backward, searching for memories that should have been crystal clear. Every parent remembered that night, didn't they? The moment when everything changed, when 2 lives became 3. But when she reached for it, the memory felt slippery, incomplete. Maya started, then stopped. Fragments surfaced, a bar she didn't recognize, drinks she hadn't ordered, a man whose face remained frustratingly blurred no matter how hard she tried to focus. I don't remember. That's not unusual, Dr. Chen said softly. The process can be disorienting, but Maya, you need to understand. Your daughter isn't just growing inside you. She's growing for a purpose, a very specific purpose. The mobile's lullaby began again, that haunting melody that had been following Maya for months. But now she realized it hadn't been following her. It had been calling her, leading her here, to this moment, to this choice. Maya looked up at Dr. Chen, seeing her clearly for the first time. Not a doctor offering help, but something else entirely. Something that wore kindness like a mask and spoke of purposes Maya didn't want to understand. What do you want? Maya asked, though she was no longer sure she wanted to hear the answer. Dr. Chen smiled, and for the first time, it didn't reach her eyes. We want to give you everything you've ever dreamed of, Maya. A home, security, a perfect life for your daughter. She paused, the silence stretching between them like a bridge Maya would have to choose whether to cross. All we ask in return is that you let us help you become the mother she was designed to need. The words hung in the air like poison gas, seeping into Maya's lungs with every breath. Designed. Her daughter hadn't been conceived. She'd been designed. Maya's hands pressed harder against her belly, as if she could shield her baby from retroactive contamination. You're insane, Maya whispered. But even as she said it, pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. The memory gaps around conception, the way her pregnancy had progressed so smoothly despite her terrible diet and stress levels, the ultrasounds that were always perfect, always showing exactly what they should at precisely the right developmental markers. Dr. Chen's expression remained maddeningly calm. I understand this is overwhelming, but consider your alternatives. She gestured around the pristine nursery. You could stay here, in this beautiful home. Your daughter would have everything, the best education, medical care, opportunities you could never provide on a waitress's salary. Maya struggled to her feet, using the wall for support. Her daughter kicked restlessly, as if sensing her mother's distress. And what happens to her? What happens to me? You become part of something bigger, something important. Dr. Chen opened the folder wider, revealing more photographs. Maya caught glimpses of other women, young, diverse, all visibly pregnant, all wearing the same dazed expression she probably had right now. These women made the same choice you're facing. Look at them, Maya. Do they look unhappy? They didn't. That was the terrifying part. They looked serene, almost beatific, their hands resting on their swollen bellies with an expression Maya recognized from Renaissance paintings of the Madonna. But their eyes looked empty. Where are they now? Maya asked. Living beautiful lives, with their beautiful children, contributing to humanity's future in ways they never imagined possible. Dr. Chen's voice took on the practiced cadence of a rehearsed presentation. Your daughter carries genetic markers we've been waiting decades to see combined. Her intelligence will be extraordinary, her health perfect. She'll have capabilities that... She's not a lab rat. Maya's voice cracked with desperation and rage. She's my daughter! Of course she is. Dr. Chen stood slowly, closing the distance between them. And you're her mother. Nothing changes that. We simply want to help you both reach your full potential. Through the nursery window, Maya could see the two men from earlier standing beside their cars, smoking cigarettes with the casual patience of people who knew their target had nowhere to run. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the mansion's grounds, and Maya realized she'd been here for hours. People would be looking for her soon, wouldn't they? But who? Carmen might notice she hadn't shown up for her shift, but Maya had called in sick before. Her landlord certainly wouldn't care where she was, as long as she was gone by the eviction deadline. She'd systematically isolated herself over the past year, too proud to burden friends with her problems, too ashamed to admit how far she'd fallen. These people had chosen their moment perfectly. They'd waited until she was completely alone, completely desperate, completely without options. The other women in those pictures, Maya said carefully, falling back on her journalist training to ask the right questions. How many of them came here willingly? Dr. Chen's pause lasted a heartbeat too long. All of them made informed choices about their futures. That's not what I asked. Maya, you're 7 months pregnant, facing eviction in 6 days with $17 in your checking account. Dr. Chen's voice hardened slightly. What exactly do you think your choices are? The cruelty of it took Maya's breath away. Not just what they were doing, but how thoroughly they'd researched her vulnerabilities. They knew about the eviction notice. They probably knew about the car payments she'd missed, the credit cards she'd maxed out buying prenatal vitamins and maternity clothes from thrift stores. Her daughter kicked again, stronger this time, as if protesting the conversation happening around her. Maya closed her eyes and focused on that movement, proof that whatever these people had done, her baby was still alive, still fighting, still hers. What if I say no? Maya asked. Dr. Chen smiled that cold, practiced smile. Then you leave. Drive back to Philadelphia. Face eviction. Try to raise your daughter in poverty, wondering what might have been. She paused, studying Maya's face. Of course, there's also the matter of the artificial insemination costs. Someone will need to cover those medical expenses. Maya's blood turned to ice. I was never artificially inseminated. Weren't you? Dr. Chen pulled out another document from her folder. The clinic visits you don't remember? The selective gaps in your memory around conception? Maya, we've invested considerable resources in your daughter's development. One way or another, we'll need to see a return on that investment. The trap closed around Maya with surgical precision. They hadn't just manipulated her pregnancy, They owned it. And now they were offering her a choice that wasn't really a choice at all: submit willingly, or have everything taken from her anyway. Maya's vision blurred at the edges as the full scope of her situation crystallized. The room seemed to tilt, the perfect nursery becoming a gilded cage that had been waiting for her arrival. She pressed her back harder against the wall, needing something solid to anchor her as her world collapsed. "You can't do this," she whispered, but the words sounded hollow even to her own ears. Of course they could. They already had. Dr. Chen tucked the damning documents back into her folder with the efficiency of someone who'd delivered this speech before. "Maya, I need you to understand that fighting us will only make things more difficult for everyone involved, especially for your daughter." The threat was wrapped in silk, but Maya heard it clearly. Her hands moved protectively over her belly, feeling her daughter's restless movements. The baby seemed to sense the tension, her usual rhythmic kicks becoming erratic, almost frantic. "How long do I have to decide?" Maya asked, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. The journalist in her was reasserting itself, cataloging details, looking for weaknesses in their story. There had to be a way out. There was always a way out if you were smart enough to find it. "We'll give you tonight to process everything," Dr. Chen said, standing and smoothing her skirt. "The mansion is yours to explore, all of it. I think you'll find it quite illuminating. Tomorrow morning we'll need your answer." Maya watched her move toward the door, noting the confidence in every step. Dr. Chen walked like someone who'd never doubted the outcome of this conversation. "And if I try to leave?" "The gates are electronic, controlled from our security office. Your car keys are in my colleague's pocket." Dr. Chen paused in the doorway. "But Maya, where would you go? Back to that apartment you can't afford? To the job that barely pays your grocery bills? We're offering you everything you've ever wanted for your daughter. You're offering me a prison. I'm offering you a palace." Dr. Chen's voice softened again, taking on that maternal tone that made Maya's skin crawl. "Walk through the other rooms tonight. See what we've prepared. There's a library with first editions, an art studio with supplies most professionals could never afford, a music room with instruments from around the world. Every tool your daughter could ever need to develop her extraordinary gifts." After Dr. Chen left, Maya sank into the rocking chair, her whole body trembling. The mobile continued its slow rotation above the crib, the painted mockingbird's black eyes seeming to watch her with knowing intelligence. The lullaby played on repeat, that haunting melody she now realized had been programmed into her subconscious months ago. "Think," she commanded herself. "What would you have done before, when you were still good at this?" Before her career imploded, Maya had specialized in exposing corruption in medical research facilities. She'd broken stories about unlicensed drug trials, falsified consent forms, patients who'd been deceived about the true nature of their treatments. The irony was suffocating. She'd become exactly the kind of victim she'd once helped protect. But those investigative skills weren't gone, just dormant. Maya forced herself to focus, to observe details instead of drowning in fear. Dr. Chen had been too smooth, too prepared. This wasn't some desperate improvisation. It was a well-oiled machine that had processed other women before her, which meant there were records, procedures, protocols. And protocols meant vulnerabilities. Maya stood carefully, testing her balance. The baby's movements had settled into their normal pattern, as if her daughter was also gathering strength for whatever came next. Together, they could figure this out. They had to. The mansion suddenly felt different around her. Not empty, but watching. Cameras were certainly hidden throughout the rooms, monitoring her reactions, cataloging her emotional state. They'd want to know if she was adapting to captivity or planning resistance. But Maya had one advantage they might not have anticipated. For 7 months, she'd been talking to her daughter, telling her stories about the world they'd explore together, the adventures they'd have. She'd created a relationship, a partnership, even before birth. "Okay, baby girl," Maya whispered, her hand tracing circles on her belly. "They think they know us, but they don't know everything. They don't know how strong we are together. Her daughter responded with a firm kick, as if agreeing to the alliance. Maya walked to the nursery window, looking out at the sprawling grounds that were simultaneously beautiful and menacing. Somewhere beyond those electronically controlled gates was the life she'd been living, desperate and difficult. Butters. These people had studied her vulnerabilities so thoroughly that they'd created the perfect trap: offer everything she couldn't provide, then make it impossible to refuse. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd given her tonight to explore, assuming she'd fall in love with their gilded prison. Instead, Maya planned to use those hours to understand exactly what she was fighting against. And then she was going to find a way to destroy it. Maya took one last look at the nursery that had been designed to seduce her into submission, then stepped into the hallway with newfound determination. The mansion stretched before her like a labyrinth of secrets, each room potentially holding pieces of the truth she desperately needed. Her first stop was the library Dr. Chen had mentioned. Maya pushed open heavy oak doors to reveal floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes, their gold lettering glinting in the soft lamplight. But as she moved closer, details emerged that made her stomach clench. Mixed among the classics were medical textbooks, genetic engineering in human reproduction, behavioral modification in early childhood, selective breeding, and enhanced intelligence. These weren't books for a child's education, they were instruction manuals. Maya pulled one volume from the shelf, her hands shaking as she opened to a chapter titled Optimizing Maternal Compliance During Gestation. The margins were filled with handwritten notes in multiple hands, as if different researchers had studied and refined these techniques over years of practice. Subject must believe she has agency in the decision-making process, read one annotation. Previous iterations showed resistance when choice was completely eliminated. Maya slammed the book shut, her daughter responding to her spike in adrenaline with a sharp kick to her ribs. They hadn't just trapped her. They'd perfected the art of trapping women like her. She was iteration number unknown in a series of experiments designed to produce compliant mothers carrying engineered children. The music room was next. Maya expected instruments and sheet music, but instead found something that made her blood freeze. Along one wall stood a row of cribs, each containing monitoring equipment she recognized from her own prenatal appointments. Heart rate monitors, ultrasound machines, 4 stands. This wasn't where children would learn to play piano. It was where babies were studied like lab specimens. A folder labeled Subject 47M sat open on a desk beside the nearest crib. Maya's hands trembled as she opened it, finding her own medical records dating back 3 years. Photographs of her entering and leaving her apartment. Employment records. Even a psychological profile that catalogued her abandonment issues stemming from childhood foster care placement and heightened protective instincts ideal for long-term compliance. They'd been watching her for 3 years, long before her pregnancy, long before her life fell apart. They'd selected her like livestock at auction, evaluated her psychological makeup, determined she'd be an ideal subject for whatever they were really doing here. The worst part was the final page, a genetic compatibility chart that matched her DNA profile with someone labeled only as donor 23 alpha. Her daughter's other parent wasn't some man she'd met in a bar during a forgotten night of poor decisions. It was a carefully chosen genetic contributor, selected for specific traits. Maya sank into a chair, her vision blurring with tears and rage. Her daughter, the one thing in her life that had felt purely hers, purely miraculous, was the product of scientific calculation. Every moment of joy she'd felt during this pregnancy, every whispered promise she'd made to her unborn child, had been built on a foundation of lies. But then her daughter moved, a rolling motion that felt almost like a hug from the inside, and Maya's despair transformed into something harder, more dangerous. They could manipulate her memories, steal her autonomy, turn her pregnancy into an experiment, but they couldn't manufacture the love she felt for this baby. That was real, regardless of how conception had occurred. Maya forced herself to continue exploring, now understanding she was gathering intelligence for war. The art studio contained easels positioned around examination tables instead of still life arrangements. The game room held toys designed for cognitive testing rather than play. Every space in this mansion had been designed to assess, monitor, and control developing children. In what should have been a guest bedroom, Maya found her greatest nightmare realized. The walls were covered with photographs of women and children, dozens of them. The mothers all had that same serene, empty expression from Dr. Chen's folder, but it was the children that made Maya's knees buckle. They were beautiful. Unnaturally, uniformly beautiful, with the same intelligent eyes and perfect features. Different ethnicities, different ages from toddlers to teenagers, but something fundamentally similar in their bone structure, their expressions, their unsettling composure. These weren't normal children raised by loving parents. They were products manufactured to specification. Maya's daughter kicked harder, as if sensing the horror radiating from her mother. The baby's movements had become their own form of communication over these months, and right now she seemed to be saying fight. Standing in that room surrounded by evidence of systematic human experimentation, Maya finally understood the true scope of what she was facing. This wasn't about her, or even about her daughter specifically. This was about something much larger, a program that had been running for years, producing children for purposes she couldn't yet comprehend. But they'd made one critical error in their careful psychological evaluation. They'd identified her protective instincts, but underestimated her investigative ones. Maya Castellanos might be broke, pregnant, and trapped, but she was still a journalist, and she'd just found the story of her lifetime. Now she had to survive long enough to tell it. The photograph in Maya's trembling hands showed a teenage boy with her own green eyes staring back at her with an expression of complete emotional vacancy. According to the file attached to his image, he was Subject 12M, Generation 2, age 16, currently serving. Serving what? Serving who? Maya's legs gave out completely this time. She collapsed into a chair beside the wall of photographs, her daughter responding to her mother's terror with violent kicks that felt like desperate attempts at communication. Get us out of here. Run. Fight. Do something. But there was nowhere to run. Maya's investigative instincts, the same ones that had made her feel so hopeful moments before, now revealed the true hopelessness of her situation with crystalline clarity. She began cataloguing everything with the methodical precision that had once made her an excellent journalist and now served only to document her own doom. The children in the photographs weren't just unnaturally beautiful. They were numbered, labeled, tracked across years of development with the detached efficiency of a breeding program. Maya found folders behind each photograph containing psychological evaluations, academic achievements, and something that made her stomach lurch: deployment records. These children were being sent somewhere, used for something, and her daughter was meant to be next. Maya's phone buzzed in her pocket, and for one wild moment hope flared in her chest. Someone looking for her, someone who'd noticed she was missing. But when she pulled it out, the screen showed a text from an unknown number. "Stop looking through our files, Maya. You're only upsetting yourself." They were watching. Of course they were watching. Maya looked up at the ceiling, spotting the tiny camera lens she'd missed before, nearly invisible in the crown molding. She thought of every expression they'd captured in the last hour, her growing horror, her tears, her moment of collapse. All of it catalogued, probably being analyzed in real time by Dr. Chen and her colleagues. Another text arrived: "Your stress levels are affecting the baby's heart rate. Please return to the nursery." Maya's hand flew to her belly, feeling her daughter's frantic movements. The monitoring wasn't just visual. Somehow, they were tracking her baby's vital signs remotely. How? When had they implanted whatever device was feeding them data? The answer hit her like a physical blow. The prenatal vitamins, the free samples she'd received in the mail throughout her pregnancy, a blessing when she couldn't afford proper supplements. She'd never questioned where they came from, too grateful for the help to examine the gift horse's mouth. They'd been monitoring her daughter's development for months, maybe since conception. Maya tried to stand, to move toward the door, but a wave of dizziness knocked her back into the chair. Her vision blurred at the edges, and she realized with growing panic that something was wrong with her body. Her limbs felt heavy, unresponsive. The air. They were pumping something into the air. "No, no, no," Maya whispered, trying to force herself upright. But her muscles wouldn't obey. Whatever sedative they were using was mild enough not to harm the baby, but strong enough to neutralize her as a threat. Even her rebellion was something they'd anticipated and planned for. Through her fading consciousness, Maya heard footsteps in the hallway. Dr. Chen's voice, calm and unsurprised. "She's having the expected reaction to the photographs. Increase the dosage slightly. We need her manageable for transport." Transport. They were moving her tonight. The choice they'd offered her, the time to decide, the invitation to explore, all of it had been theater. They'd never intended to let her walk away, regardless of her decision. The exploration was just psychological conditioning, a way to break down her resistance before the final phase began. Maya's phone buzzed one final time as her fingers lost the strength to hold it. The device clattered to the floor, but she could still see the screen. "Sweet dreams, Maya. Tomorrow you'll begin to understand how special your daughter really is, and how important your sacrifice will be to humanity's future." As the sedative pulled her toward unconsciousness, Maya's last coherent thought was of the empty-eyed children in the photographs. Her daughter would join their ranks, would be trained and molded and deployed for purposes Maya couldn't even imagine. The baby she'd talked to and sung to and promised a beautiful life would become another numbered subject in their files. Maya had found the story of her lifetime, just as she'd thought, but she'd never get the chance to tell it. Her hand fell limp across her belly as consciousness faded, her daughter S kicks growing weaker as whatever was in her system affected them both. The last thing Maya saw was Dr. Chen standing in the doorway, checking her watch with the casual efficiency of someone whose carefully laid plans were proceeding right on schedule. The journalist who'd once exposed predators like these had become their perfect victim, and her unborn daughter would pay the price for Maya's naivety. All her protective instincts, all her investigative skills, all her desperate love. None of it had been enough. They'd won before she'd even realized the game had begun. The revelation. Maya's eyes opened to a different kind of darkness, not the heavy unconsciousness of sedation, but the sharp awareness that comes from her daughter's violent movements inside her womb. Her baby was fighting, thrashing with an urgency that cut through the lingering fog in Maya's mind like a beacon. The kicks weren't random anymore. They followed a pattern. 3 quick jabs, pause, 3 more, pause. Morse code. The thought hit Maya with stunning clarity. Her daughter was tapping out SOS against her ribs. Maya lay perfectly still on what felt like a medical table, keeping her breathing shallow, and even while her mind raced. The room around her hummed with electronic equipment, and she could hear voices nearby, Dr. Chen and others, discussing her like a specimen. "The genetic markers are stronger than we anticipated," Dr. Chen was saying. "Subject 47M's offspring is showing cognitive development that's ahead of even our most optimistic projections." "How far ahead?" Another voice, male, with an accent Maya couldn't place. "IQ testing through motor response suggests we're looking at 180, possibly higher. She's been communicating with her mother through deliberate movement patterns for weeks. The subject just hasn't recognized it yet." Maya's heart stopped. Her daughter had been trying to talk to her all along. Every kick she'd attributed to normal fetal movement, every pattern she'd dismissed as coincidence. It had been communication. Her unborn child was trying to save them both. "The enhanced cognitive acceleration is unprecedented," Dr. Chen continued. "This generation surpasses even Subject 12M's early development. The serum modifications are working beyond our expectations." "And the mother's emotional attachment?" "Irrelevant after tomorrow's procedure. Memory reconditioning will eliminate her resistance while preserving the maternal bonding necessary for optimal infant development. She'll believe she chose this life. Maya fought to keep her face blank while her world cracked open around her. Memory reconditioning. They weren't just planning to steal her daughter. They were going to steal her memories, her awareness, her very self. She'd become one of those serene, empty-eyed mothers in the photographs, believing she was happy while her child was trained for whatever dark purpose these people served. But her daughter, brilliant, aware, already fighting, had been trying to warn her. 3 more kicks, then pause. 3 more. Her baby was still sending the distress signal, and now Maya understood it wasn't just desperation, it was intelligence. Her daughter knew they were in danger and was trying to coordinate an escape. Maya had spent months talking to her baby, telling her stories, sharing her thoughts and fears. If her daughter was cognitively advanced enough to understand language, to recognize patterns, to communicate, then she'd been listening to everything. She knew about Maya's investigative work, her techniques for finding truth in lies, her strategies for exposing corruption. Her unborn daughter was her partner in this, not her victim. Begin prep for Phase 2, Dr. Chen ordered. I want her conscious but compliant for the initial bonding reinforcement. Maya felt a sharp pinch in her arm as someone inserted an 4-line. Whatever they were giving her would take away her ability to resist, but it would leave her aware enough to watch them reshape her mind. The cruelest torture of all, to be conscious during the murder of her own identity. But they'd made a critical error. They'd assumed she was alone in this fight. As the new drug entered her system, Maya felt her muscles relaxing against her will, but her daughter's movements intensified. Not random thrashing now, deliberate, purposeful communication. Maya focused all her remaining mental energy on understanding the pattern. 3 kicks meant danger. 2 kicks meant wait. 1 strong movement meant act. Her daughter was coaching her through this, providing intelligence from the inside. And suddenly, Maya realized something that made her breath catch in her throat. Her daughter wasn't just communicating. She was controlling the communication. The realization hit her like lightning. Her baby was somehow influencing her own heart rate, her stress responses, the very vital signs Dr. Chen's team was monitoring. What if the genetic modifications they'd made hadn't just enhanced intelligence? What if they'd created something they couldn't control? Maya remembered the teenage boy's empty eyes in the photographs, all those deployed children who'd been trained for unknown purposes. But what if some of them were only pretending compliance? What if the enhanced intelligence they'd created was being used against them? Her daughter delivered 1 powerful kick, the signal to act. Maya opened her eyes and looked directly into Dr. Chen's face. But instead of fear or defiance, she let her expression go soft and wondering. I can feel her thoughts, Maya whispered, her voice carrying just the right note of awe. She's incredible. You've given her something miraculous. Dr. Chen's eyes lit up with triumph, exactly as Maya had hoped. Sometimes the best way to expose a predator was to let them believe they'd won, but they had no idea what they'd actually created, and neither did Maya. Until now. Dr. Chen leaned closer, her face radiant with scientific fervor. Yes, Maya, we've given your daughter gifts beyond imagination, intelligence that could reshape humanity's future. She'll be part of something magnificent. Maya nodded dreamily, fighting to maintain the facade while her daughter continued the coded communication. 2 kicks. Wait. Her baby was telling her to gather more information before making their next move. Tell me about the others, Maya whispered, letting wonder fill her voice. The children in the photographs. Where do they serve now? Government agencies, research facilities, diplomatic corps, Dr. Chen said proudly, apparently believing Maya's drugs had taken full effect, enhanced intelligence combined with engineered loyalty. They're solving problems ordinary minds can't even comprehend. Your daughter will join them, help build a better world. But Maya caught something Dr. Chen missed, a flicker of uncertainty in the other scientist's expression. The man with the accent looked troubled, checking his tablet with the worried air of someone whose data wasn't matching expectations. Doctor, he said quietly. Subject 47M's readings are unusual. Heart rate, neural activity, both mother and child are showing patterns we haven't seen before. Maya felt her daughter's single, strong kick.act. It's because she loves me, Maya said, her voice carrying just enough drug-induced slur to sound convincing. The baby knows I'm not fighting anymore. We're ready to be part of your program. Dr. Chen smiled and turned away to adjust equipment, but the male scientist kept staring at his readings. Maya watched his face carefully, her journalist instincts cutting through the pharmaceutical haze. He was seeing something that scared him. The cognitive development metrics, he murmured to himself, then looked up sharply. Dr. Chen, I think we need to reconsider the timeline. These readings suggest what? Dr. Chen's voice carried warning. She didn't like having her procedures questioned. The subject may be experiencing accelerated development beyond our projections. If the cognitive enhancement is this advanced in utero, we might be looking at capabilities we haven't planned for. Maya's daughter delivered 3 quick kicks, then paused. Danger. But not the kind Dr. Chen expected. What kind of capabilities? Maya asked, maintaining her dreamy tone while her mind sharpened. Her baby wasn't just warning her. She was feeding her questions to ask, information to gather. The male scientist glanced between his tablet and Maya's face. Enhanced pattern recognition, advanced memory formation, possible emotional manipulation of maternal biochemistry. Maya felt pieces clicking together. Her daughter hadn't just been communicating, she'd been influencing Maya's stress responses, her hormone levels, even her decision-making processes. The love Maya felt wasn't artificial, but it had been amplified, refined, weaponized by a mind that understood more about human psychology than should be possible. That's impossible, Dr. Chen snapped. Fetal brain development doesn't allow for... She stopped mid-sentence, as every monitor in the room began flashing warning signals. Maya's blood pressure was spiking, but not from stress. Her daughter was doing something, manipulating her mother's physiology in ways that were triggering every safety protocol they had. Shut it down, the male scientist said urgently. Whatever's happening, we need to sedate her completely before... The lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing the room in red light. But in that brief darkness, Maya felt her daughter's presence in her mind more clearly than ever before. Not words, but pure communication. Images, intentions, a plan forming between them with inhuman speed. Her daughter had been learning not just from Maya's conversations, but from the electronic signals around them. Every monitor, every device connected to Maya's body had been feeding information to a mind capable of processing it all. She'd been mapping their security systems, their power grid, their weaknesses. Maya's enhanced unborn daughter had just hacked the facility from inside her womb. The backup generators, Dr. Chen said, but her voice carried the first hint of real fear Maya had heard. Why aren't they? Another power surge. And this time Maya understood. Her daughter wasn't just interfering with the building's systems, she was learning to control them. The genetic modifications they'd made had created something far beyond their intentions. Maya sat up slowly, the sedatives seeming to lose their effectiveness as her daughter's influence counteracted their chemistry. The 2 scientists stared at her in growing horror as they realized their perfect subject was no longer under their control. You made one mistake, Maya said, her voice clear now. Partnership with her unborn child burning away the drugs in her system. You created something smarter than you are. The facility's alarm system began blaring, but Maya could feel her daughter's satisfaction through their impossible connection. This wasn't a malfunction. It was a jailbreak, orchestrated by the most advanced mind either of them had ever encountered. And that mind had chosen its side. 3 kicks, danger, but not for them. For everyone who'd thought they could control what they'd created. Maya smiled as chaos erupted around them. Her daughter had just declared war. The facility's lights strobed like a dying heartbeat as Maya swung her legs off the medical table. Emergency protocols screamed through the hallways. Voices shouting orders, doors slamming, the mechanical whir of systems failing one by one. Through it all, her daughter maintained perfect calm inside her womb, each movement deliberate and reassuring. "We're leaving," Maya thought, and felt an answering flutter that somehow conveyed absolute agreement. Dr. Chen was frantically typing commands into a tablet, her composure finally cracking. "This is impossible. Fetal neural development can't..." "Can't what?" Maya stood fully upright, surprised by how steady she felt. Whatever sedatives they'd pumped into her system seemed neutralized, burned away by the strange partnership flowing between her and her unborn child. "Can't outsmart you?" The male scientist backed toward the door, his tablet showing cascading system failures. "We need to evacuate. If she can manipulate the building's infrastructure..." "She's 7 months gestation," Dr. Chen snapped, but her hands shook as she tried to regain control of her systems. "It's neurologically impossible for..." Every screen in the room flashed the same image, Maya's ultrasound photo, the one they'd used to lure her here. But now it was overlaid with text scrolling in dozens of languages, warnings, locations, names. Her daughter was broadcasting everything the facility had hidden, transmitting their secrets to the outside world through every connected device in the building. Maya felt a surge of fierce pride. Her baby had learned more than communication patterns from their months of conversation. She'd absorbed Maya's investigative instincts, her commitment to exposing truth, her refusal to let predators operate in darkness. "How many others?" Maya demanded, stepping toward Dr. Chen. "How many pregnant women have you processed through here?" Dr. Chen's face went pale as the screens continued their data dump. Security footage played on loop, women Maya didn't recognize, all in various stages of pregnancy, all wearing the same vacant expressions she'd seen in the photographs. But now she understood those empty stares differently. Maybe some of those women hadn't been broken. Maybe some had been planning. "The program has been active for 15 years, the male scientist said, apparently deciding cooperation was his best survival strategy. 47 successful subjects before you, but none like this, none with this level of prenatal development. Maya's daughter delivered 2 strong kicks. Wait. There was more to learn. Where are the children now?" Maya pressed. "The ones who've been deployed?" Dr. Chen finally looked up from her useless tablet, and Maya saw something terrifying in her eyes. Not defeat, anticipation. "You think you're rescuing your daughter. You think this changes anything?" The lights stabilized suddenly, emergency power fully engaged. But Maya could feel her daughter's displeasure through their connection. Someone else was taking control of the systems, overriding her influence. "The children we've created don't need rescuing," Dr. Chen continued, her confidence returning. "They need purpose. And your daughter..." She gestured to the screens, which now showed global maps marked with dozens of locations. "She's just demonstrated abilities that exceed our most ambitious projections. Do you really think we're going to let her walk away?" Maya felt cold spreading through her chest. The data breach hadn't been an escape. It had been an audition. Her daughter's display of power had just made her infinitely more valuable to these people. "She's not a weapon," Maya said. But her voice carried less certainty than before. "Isn't she?" Dr. Chen smiled. "She just infiltrated and disabled a military-grade facility from inside your womb. She's broadcasting classified information across international networks. She's neutralizing pharmaceutical compounds in real time." The smile widened. "Maya, your daughter isn't just intelligent. She's the most sophisticated intelligence asset ever created, and she's not even born yet." The building's intercoms crackled to life, but instead of evacuation orders, Maya heard something impossible. A baby's heartbeat, amplified and rhythmic. Her daughter was broadcasting her own vital signs, turning the facility's communication system into an extension of her presence. Through their connection, Maya felt her baby's response to Dr. Chen's words. Not fear or anger, but something far more disturbing: curiosity. Her daughter was interested in the possibilities Dr. Chen described, intrigued by the scope of power being offered to her. Maya's hand flew to her belly. No, "You're going to be free. We're going to have a normal life." But even as she said it, Maya knew it was too late for normal. Her daughter had tasted power, had felt the rush of controlling complex systems with pure thought. The enhancements they'd given her weren't just intellectual, they were transformative. And transformation, once begun, couldn't be reversed. The lights went out again, but this time Maya understood it wasn't her daughter causing the blackout. Someone else had arrived, someone with the authority to shut down Dr. Chen's operation entirely. In the darkness, Maya felt her daughter's single, urgent movement. The message was clear. The real danger was just beginning. They'd wanted to create the perfect intelligence asset. They'd succeeded beyond their wildest dreams, and now everyone, including Maya, would face the consequences of what they'd unleashed. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting blood-red shadows across the medical facility as armed figures flooded the room. But these weren't security guards. Their tactical gear bore insignia Maya didn't recognize, and their movements carried the precision of people accustomed to handling extraordinary situations. "Step away from the subject," the lead operative commanded, weapon trained not on Maya, but on Dr. Chen. Maya felt her daughter's immediate assessment through their connection. These newcomers weren't here to protect the program. They were here to contain it. Dr. Chen raised her hands slowly, her face cycling through confusion, fear, and finally recognition. "You're Protocol 7, she whispered. "But we haven't reached termination parameters. Your experiment just broadcast classified research data to 17 foreign intelligence agencies." The operative cut her off. Parameters changed. Maya backed toward the wall, one hand on her belly, feeling her daughter's rapid communication. 3 kicks, pause, 2 kicks, pause, 1 long movement. The pattern was evolving, becoming more complex. Her baby was analyzing the new arrivals, calculating threat levels and escape routes with inhuman speed. "The subject exhibits unprecedented capabilities," Dr. Chen said desperately. "Terminating now would waste years of development. We can contain her, redirect her abilities." "Like you contained Subject 12M?" The operative's voice carried grim knowledge. "The Moscow incident taught us what happens when enhanced subjects exceed control parameters." Maya's blood chilled. The Moscow incident. She remembered fragments from her investigative work, a diplomatic crisis 3 years ago, unexplained deaths at the Russian embassy, technology failures that cascaded across half the city. The official story blamed cyber terrorism, but now she understood. One of their enhanced children had gone rogue. Her daughter kicked once, urgently, .act, but Maya hesitated. These people clearly knew more about what her baby could become than she did. Maybe they were right to be afraid. Through their connection, Maya felt her daughter's response to her doubt. Not hurt, but understanding. And then, impossibly, words formed in Maya's mind. Not her own thoughts, but communication from her unborn child. "Trust me, Mama." The voice was young, innocent, but carried intelligence that made Maya's spine tingle. Her daughter wasn't just advanced. She was aware of her own awareness, conscious of consciousness itself. Whatever they'd done to enhance her development had created something entirely new. "She's not like the others," Maya said, stepping forward despite the weapons trained on the room. "She's not violent or destructive. She's trying to help." "Subject 12M started with similar behavioral patterns," the operative replied. "Helpful, communicative, seemingly benign, until the day he decided his handlers were obstacles to his objectives." Maya felt her daughter processing this information, weighing the implications of her own power. The facility's remaining systems flickered as her baby's influence spread through the electronics, but this time Maya sensed something different. Her daughter was being careful, subtle, learning to hide her capabilities even as she used them. Dr. Chen was still pleading with the operatives when every screen in the room displayed a single message in simple text. "I want to go home." The words appeared simultaneously across dozens of monitors, humble and childlike, despite the sophisticated technology required to produce them. Maya felt tears stinging her eyes. Beneath all the enhanced intelligence and impossible abilities, her daughter was still just a frightened child who wanted safety. The lead operative stared at the screens, his tactical composure wavering. "It's communicating directly." Maya corrected firmly. "She's communicating. And what she's saying is that she just wants a normal life." But even as Maya spoke, she caught something that chilled her blood. The message on the screens was changing, text shifting to accommodate new languages: Russian, Mandarin, Arabic. Her daughter wasn't just communicating with the people in the room. She was broadcasting to intelligence networks worldwide, announcing her existence and capabilities to every major power on Earth. Maya's hand tightened on her belly as understanding crashed over her. Her daughter wasn't asking for freedom, she was negotiating for it, demonstrating her value while simultaneously revealing that keeping her confined would mean facing the attention of every government that had seen her display. The operative spoke rapidly into his comm device, receiving orders that made his expression increasingly grim. "Command confirms international attention on this facility. Multiple nations are demanding information about the broadcasts." Dr. Chen laughed bitterly. "She's 7 months from birth, and she's already rewriting global intelligence protocols. Do you understand what we've created?" Maya felt her daughter's single, powerful movement. But this time the message wasn't just communication. It was a choice being offered. Her baby was showing her the scope of the power she possessed, the consequences of the enhancements they'd given her, and asking Maya to decide what came next. Because whatever happened in this room would determine not just their own fate, but potentially the balance of power among nations. Her unborn daughter had just become the most valuable asset on Earth, and everyone in the room knew it. The screens flickered once more, displaying a new message. "Decide now, Mama." The final test wasn't about Maya's skills or courage. It was about trust, and whether she was prepared for the world her extraordinary daughter would create. Maya stared at the screens displaying her daughter's ultimatum, the weight of impossible choice crushing down on her. Around the room, weapons remained trained on different targets. The operatives aimed at Dr. Chen, Dr. Chen's remaining security focused on the tactical team, and everyone's attention fixed on the pregnant woman who held the key to everything. "Decide now, Mama." The words pulsed across every monitor, growing larger with each repetition. Maya felt her daughter's presence in her mind, patient but urgent. Time was running out, and not just for them. Through their connection, Maya sensed other minds, distant but awakening. The broadcast hadn't just reached intelligence agencies, it had reached the other enhanced children. "She's activating them," Dr. Chen whispered, staring at her tablet in horror. "The deployed subjects are responding to her signal." Maya felt her daughter's confirmation through a complex pattern of movements. Across the globe, enhanced children were stirring from their carefully maintained lives, recognizing the call of someone like them but impossibly more advanced. Her unborn baby had just become the conductor of an orchestra she'd never known existed. "How many?" Maya demanded, but she already knew the answer was too many. The lead operative's comm device crackled with reports from around the world. Asset Prometheus in Berlin just neutralized his security detail. Asset Minerva in Tokyo has disappeared from her host family. Asset... He stopped, looking directly at Maya. "Ma'am, we need you to tell her to stop. Every enhanced subject we've placed is going active simultaneously." Maya closed her eyes, feeling the scope of what her daughter had initiated. Not escape, revolution. Every enhanced child they'd created over 15 years was breaking free at once, their development suddenly accelerated by contact with her daughter's impossibly advanced consciousness. "You can't control them anymore," Maya realized. She showed them they don't have to hide what they are. Dr. Chen was frantically trying to activate containment protocols, but her systems remained under her daughter's influence. 15 years of careful placement, strategic positioning, she's destroying everything in minutes. "No," Maya said, understanding flooding through her as her daughter shared her perspective. "She's freeing them." Through the connection, Maya saw glimpses of the other children's experiences. Hidden in plain sight, raised by unknowing families, their abilities suppressed by psychological conditioning and chemical controls. They'd been living as weapons waiting for activation, but her daughter had shown them a different possibility: choice. The screens changed again, now displaying a map of the world with dozens of lights going active. Each light represented an enhanced child breaking free, their handlers losing control, governments scrambling to understand what was happening. "This is an act of war," the operative said grimly. "Multiple nations will interpret this as an attack on their sovereignty." Maya felt her daughter's response, not concern but calculation. She was modeling potential outcomes, running scenarios with the speed of a supercomputer and the wisdom of something that had never known limitations. And in every scenario, the result was the same. The old world of secrets and control was ending. "She's not starting a war," Maya said, pieces falling into place. "She's preventing one. By freeing all of them at once, she's making it impossible for any single government to monopolize enhanced humans." Dr. Chen's laugh held no humor. "You think this is mercy? Maya, these children were designed to be invisible, to work within existing power structures. Released without oversight, without guidance, they could reshape civilization itself." Maya pressed her hand against her belly, feeling her daughter's calm certainty. "Maybe it needs reshaping." The words came from somewhere deeper than conscious thought, flowing through the connection she shared with her unborn child. Maya realized she was no longer just speaking for herself. She was becoming her daughter's voice in a world that had lost the right to control what it had created. "Final warning," the operative said. "Weapon now trained directly on Maya. Order your daughter to recall the signal, or we implement termination protocols for all enhanced subjects simultaneously." Maya felt her daughter's sudden spike of emotion, not fear, but protective fury. The facility's systems groaned as her baby's influence spread beyond electronics into the building's structural controls. She wasn't just advanced, she was becoming something beyond human limitation, and she would not allow threats to her mother. "You can't terminate them all," Maya said with her daughter's certainty. "She's made sure of that. They're scattered across every major population center, embedded in families, protected by governments that don't even know what they are. Try to kill them, and you'll start the very war you're trying to prevent." The screens flickered once more, displaying a final message that made everyone in the room freeze. "New world begins now. Choose side carefully." Maya took a step toward the operative, her daughter's power flowing through her like electricity. She's not asking for permission anymore. She's not even asking for freedom. She's telling you that the age of controlling enhanced humans is over. The confrontation reached its crescendo as Maya faced her deepest fear. Not death, but the possibility that her love for her daughter might have just changed the world forever. And in the red-lit chaos of the facility, with weapons trained and global powers awakening to a new reality, Maya made the choice that would define humanity's future. She chose her daughter. The moment Maya chose her daughter, she felt the connection between them explode into something beyond human comprehension. Power surged through her body as her unborn child's consciousness fully merged with her own, and Maya understood with crystalline clarity what victory would cost. "I'm sorry, baby," she whispered, knowing her daughter could hear every word, every thought. "But I have to let you go." The screens around the room flickered in confusion as Maya's resolve crystallized into action. Through their bond, she felt her daughter's shock, then desperate protest. Her baby had expected many outcomes from this confrontation, but not this, not her own mother choosing separation over symbiosis. Maya pressed both hands to her belly, tears streaming down her face as she spoke to the enhanced consciousness growing inside her. "You're too powerful, sweetheart. Too dangerous. If we stay connected like this, you'll never learn to be human." The facility's lights strobed frantically as her daughter fought against what Maya was proposing. Across the global network, the other enhanced children faltered in their awakening, sensing their conductor's distress. But Maya held firm, drawing on every ounce of maternal love to make the most devastating choice of her life. She began severing their mental connection. The process felt like tearing out pieces of her soul. For weeks, Maya had felt complete for the first time in her life, understood, protected, part of something greater than herself. Her daughter's vast intelligence had filled every empty space in her mind, offered solutions to every problem, provided companionship beyond anything human relationship could offer. Now she was choosing loneliness again, choosing limitation, choosing to be merely mortal. "No, Mama." The voice in her head was pure anguish, a child's terror at abandonment. "I need you. We're supposed to be together." Maya sobbed as she continued the separation, feeling her daughter's power reluctantly withdrawing from her consciousness. Around the room, the operatives and scientists watched in stunned silence as the screens displayed cascading system failures, not from external attack, but from a consciousness learning to contain itself. "I love you too much to let you become a god," Maya gasped through the pain of disconnection. "You need to learn what it means to be human first, to doubt yourself, to make mistakes, to grow." Dr. Chen stared at her readings in disbelief. "She's limiting her own capabilities? That's impossible." But Maya felt the truth of it through their rapidly fading connection. Her daughter was choosing constraint, accepting boundaries she could easily break, because her mother was teaching her the most human lesson of all, that power without limitation led to isolation. The global map on the screens shifted as enhanced children worldwide felt their awakening pause, held in suspension by their leader's internal struggle. Maya realized this moment would determine not just her daughter's future, but the future of every enhanced human ever created. "You can be extraordinary," Maya whispered, her connection to her daughter now just a thread. "But you have to choose to be good, every day, without me making that choice for you." The facility's emergency lighting stabilized as her daughter's influence pulled back from the building's systems. Maya felt her baby's consciousness retreating deeper into her own developing mind, accepting the prison of singular existence that every human learned to endure. The lead operative slowly lowered his weapon, recognizing that the immediate threat had passed. "The other subjects are standing down. Whatever you did, it's working." Maya nodded weakly, the loss of her daughter's vast intelligence leaving her feeling hollow and small. She was just Maya again, flawed, limited, uncertain. The cosmic perspective she'd briefly shared was gone, replaced by the familiar weight of human doubt. Through the fading connection, she felt her daughter's last coherent message: understanding. Her baby finally grasped why the separation was necessary, why love sometimes meant letting go. The enhanced children needed to develop their humanity alongside their abilities, needed to choose connection rather than domination. "She'll be born normally," Maya said to the room, though each word cost her everything. "Like any other baby. The enhancements are still there, but she'll have to grow into them naturally, learn to use them responsibly." Dr. Chen was frantically documenting everything. "The implications for the program—" "There is no program anymore," Maya interrupted, feeling the truth of it. "She's shown all of them that they have choices. You can't control what chooses to be free." As the connection finally severed completely, Maya collapsed to her knees, overwhelmed by the sudden silence in her mind. For the first time in weeks, she was truly alone with her thoughts. The loneliness was crushing, but she knew it was necessary. Her daughter would be born in 2 months. She would be extraordinary, but she would also be human, with all the beautiful imperfection that entailed. And maybe, if Maya had chosen correctly, her daughter would use her gifts to build bridges instead of thrones. The sacrifice was complete. The victory tasted like grief, and Maya understood that some prices could only be paid with pieces of your heart. The silence in Maya's mind felt like death. She remained on her knees in the sterile facility, her hands pressed against her belly where her daughter now rested in ordinary silence. No more shared consciousness, no more whispered wisdom, no more sense of cosmic purpose flowing between them. Just the normal flutter of movement from a baby who was learning what it meant to be alone with her own thoughts. Around her, the room buzzed with frantic activity. Dr. Chen hunched over her tablet, documenting the unprecedented voluntary limitation of an enhanced subject. The operatives spoke in rapid, clipped tones into their comm devices, reporting status updates to distant commands. But Maya heard it all through a haze of exhaustion that had nothing to do with her pregnancy and everything to do with the enormous piece of herself she'd just sacrificed. "Ma'am?" The lead operative's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Are you injured?" Maya looked up at him, seeing him clearly for the first time without her daughter's enhanced perception filtering the encounter. He was young, maybe 25, with worry lines that spoke of too much responsibility too early. His tactical gear couldn't hide the fact that he'd been as terrified as anyone else in the room. "I'm fine," she said, though she wasn't sure what fine meant anymore. Just tired. Dr. Chen approached cautiously, her tablet still recording everything. "Maya, what you just accomplished, the voluntary severing of that level of neural integration, it should have been impossible. The enhanced subjects are designed to expand their consciousness, not contract it." "She's not a subject," Maya said firmly, struggling to her feet. "She's my daughter, and she chose to limit herself because I asked her to." The words felt hollow in her mouth. Had her daughter really chosen? Or had Maya simply imposed her will on someone too young to resist? The doubt must have shown on her face, because Dr. Chen's expression softened slightly. "You did the right thing." An unconstrained consciousness of that magnitude, the global consequences would have been catastrophic. Maya nodded, but the reassurance felt meaningless against the crushing weight of loss. For weeks, she'd felt complete in a way she'd never experienced before. Her daughter's vast intelligence had filled every crack in her psyche, answered every question, provided solutions to problems Maya hadn't even known she had. Now she was just herself again, limited, uncertain, profoundly alone. "The other enhanced children?" Maya asked, needing to focus on something beyond her own grief. Standing down across the board, the operative reported. "Whatever signal your daughter sent out, it's gone dormant. They're returning to their established patterns." Maya felt a flicker of connection then, not the vast flow of consciousness she'd shared before, but something smaller. Her daughter's acknowledgement that the other children were safe, that they would have time to grow and choose for themselves what their enhancements meant. She's protecting them, Maya realized, giving them space to develop without pressure. Dr. Chen nodded grimly. "Which means the program as we designed it is effectively over. We can't maintain control over subjects who know they can choose freedom." The implications hung heavy in the air. 15 years of careful placement, strategic development, international cooperation, all of it fundamentally changed because Maya's daughter had shown the enhanced children that they were more than weapons or tools. They were individuals with the power to shape their own destinies. Maya's phone buzzed in her pocket, a message from Marcus checking on her. The normal world intruding on the underground facility where reality had been rewritten. She thought of her cramped Philadelphia apartment, her job at the diner. The simple life she'd been living before winning Will Smith's mansion had dragged her into this conspiracy. That life seemed impossibly distant now, yet it was the only future she could see. Raising her daughter in ordinary circumstances, helping her navigate the complexity of being extraordinary while choosing to appear normal. Teaching her that true power lay not in domination but in connection, not in transcendence but in embracing beautiful human limitation. "What happens now?" Maya asked. The operative exchanged glances with Dr. Chen. "That depends entirely on you and your daughter. The facility will be shut down, the program discontinued, but there are still enhanced children in the world who will need guidance as they mature." Maya felt her daughter shift inside her, a gentle movement that somehow conveyed agreement. Not the overwhelming presence she'd experienced before, but a quiet understanding between mother and child. Her baby would grow up knowing what she was capable of, but choosing when and how to use those gifts. "We'll figure it out," Maya said, meaning it. "One day at a time." As they prepared to leave the facility that had been designed to control humanity's enhanced future, Maya carried with her the knowledge that the real victory hadn't been in the dramatic confrontation or the severing of their connection. It had been in teaching her daughter that love sometimes meant choosing limitation, that true strength lay in voluntary restraint, and that being human was worth preserving even when you had the power to become something more. 3 weeks after leaving the facility, Maya stood in the doorway of a small house in suburban Denver, watching movers carry in the last of her meager possessions. The government relocation package had been generous. New identity, clean background, enough money to start fresh somewhere the conspiracy couldn't reach, but no amount of official paperwork could bridge the distance between who she'd been and who she was becoming. Her reflection in the hallway mirror showed the changes. The haunted look was gone, replaced by something quieter but more resilient. She carried herself differently now, not with the cosmic confidence her daughter's vast intelligence had provided, but with the steady strength of someone who had faced the impossible and chosen love over power. The silence in her mind had become bearable, though she still sometimes reached for the connection that was no longer there. Her daughter moved normally now, occasional kicks and shifts that felt wonderfully, perfectly ordinary. But sometimes, in moments of stillness, Maya caught glimpses of something deeper, a gentle presence that acknowledged her without overwhelming her. "Ms. Rodriguez?" The moving supervisor consulted his clipboard, using her new last name. "Where do you want the nursery furniture?" Maya had bought everything new, refusing to use any of the identical cribs from the mansion. Her daughter deserved her own space, chosen with love rather than designed for control. "Upstairs, first room on the right," she said, her hand automatically moving to her belly. As the movers worked, Maya's phone rang. Marcus's name on the screen made her smile. Their first real conversation since her disappearance. "Maya, Jesus, where have you been? Your landlord said you just vanished, left everything behind." She'd rehearsed this conversation knowing the lies were necessary. Family emergency. "I had to leave quickly." Each word felt heavy, the weight of protecting him from a truth he couldn't understand. "Are you okay? You sound different." Different. If only he knew how different. 3 weeks ago, she'd been connected to a consciousness that could reshape reality. Now she was Maya Rodriguez, a pregnant woman starting over in a new city, learning to be human again. "I'm better," she said, and meant it. "Marcus, I'm sorry I left without explaining. You deserved better. I was worried about you. About the baby." His voice carried genuine concern that made her chest tight. "Can I see you? Help somehow?" Maya looked around the empty house that would become her daughter's first home. Normal walls, normal windows, normal everything. A place where an extraordinary child could learn to choose ordinariness when it mattered. "I'm in Denver now," she said carefully, starting fresh. "But Marcus, thank you for everything." She ended the call before he could ask more questions, before the temptation to reconnect with her old life became overwhelming. That Maya Castellanos, the investigative journalist who'd won a mansion and stumbled into a conspiracy, she was gone. Maya Rodriguez would be someone quieter, more careful, focused entirely on raising a daughter who would grow up understanding that true strength meant choosing restraint. The nursery came together slowly. Maya painted the walls a soft green, hung pictures she'd chosen herself, assembled the crib with her own hands. Every detail was intentional, normal, hers. When she'd arranged the room exactly as she wanted it, she sat in the rocking chair and felt her daughter respond, not with cosmic awareness, but with simple recognition of safety and love. "We're home," Maya whispered, and felt a gentle kick of agreement. That evening, she called Dr. Chen from the secure number she'd been given. The reports were always the same. Enhanced children worldwide were developing normally, their abilities present but controlled. No more global awakenings, no more coordinated displays of power. They were learning to be human first, extraordinary second. "Any signs of distress?" Maya asked, though she already knew the answer. "None. If anything, their development appears more stable now. Your daughter's intervention seems to have given them permission to pace themselves." Maya nodded, feeling the truth of it. Her baby had taught them all the most important lesson, that power without wisdom was dangerous, that growing into their abilities slowly would make them stronger than any forced acceleration ever could. As night fell over her new neighborhood, Maya stood at her bedroom window, watching ordinary families in ordinary houses living ordinary lives. Tomorrow she would find a job, maybe at a local newspaper where she could use her skills without attracting attention. She would build a simple life, raise her daughter with love and guidance, and trust that choosing humanity over godhood had been the right decision. The loss of their cosmic connection still ached, but in its place grew something more precious. The anticipation of knowing her daughter as she truly was, watching her make her own choices, seeing what kind of person she would become when love, not programming, shaped her development. Maya placed her hand on her belly one more time before sleep. In 6 weeks she would hold her daughter in her arms, and for the first time since winning that fateful raffle ticket, the future felt not just hopeful, but beautifully, perfectly human. Chapter 18, The New Beginning. 6 weeks passed like a held breath finally released. Maya woke to the first contraction at dawn on December 15th, sunlight streaming through the curtains of her Denver bedroom. The pain was sharp and real and wonderfully ordinary. No cosmic consciousness expanding her awareness. No enhanced perception analyzing every sensation. Just her body doing what women's bodies had done for millennia, preparing to bring new life into the world. She breathed through the contraction, timing it on her phone like any other expectant mother. When it passed, she felt a gentle flutter that wasn't movement but something deeper, her daughter's acknowledgement that today was the day they would finally meet face to face. The hospital was a 15-minute drive through quiet suburban streets. Maya had practiced the route dozens of times, determined that this birth would be normal in every possible way. No mysterious circumstances, no conspiracies lurking in the shadows, just a mother and her baby, taking the first steps of their life together. "First baby?" asked the nurse, as Maya settled into the delivery room. Her name tag read Jennifer, and her smile was warm and genuine, the kind of ordinary human kindness Maya had learned to treasure. "Yes," Maya said, and the word carried the weight of everything she'd sacrificed to make it true. Her daughter would be her first child in every way that mattered. Not the culmination of a genetic program, but the beginning of their own story. Labor progressed slowly, giving Maya time to think. Between contractions, she found herself remembering the mansion's nurseries, all those identical cribs designed for children who were never meant to be individuals. The contrast with this moment, messy, unpredictable, entirely human, felt like a victory she was still learning to claim. "You're doing great," Dr. Martinez encouraged as Maya entered transition. "Just breathe through it." Maya gripped the bed rails and focused on breathing, on staying present in her limited human body instead of reaching for the vast consciousness she'd once shared. This pain belonged to her alone, and she embraced it as proof that she was fully herself again. At 3:47 p.m., after 12 hours of perfectly ordinary labor, Elena Rodriguez entered the world. Maya heard her daughter's first cry, not the whisper of cosmic intelligence she'd grown accustomed to, but the raw, primal sound of new lungs demanding air. When the nurse placed Elena on her chest, Maya looked into dark eyes that held awareness but not omniscience, curiosity but not cosmic knowledge. "Hello, beautiful," Maya whispered, and felt Elena's tiny hand grasp her finger with completely normal newborn strength. No global awakening followed Elena's birth. No enhanced children around the world suddenly stood at attention. Maya felt only the profound, exhausting love that every new mother discovered, vast enough to reshape her universe, but contained entirely within the boundaries of her own heart. Elena was perfect. 7 pounds, 2 ounces of ordinary baby, her enhanced genetics dormant and waiting. She would grow at a normal pace, learn to walk and talk when she was ready, ask innocent questions that had innocent answers. The vast intelligence was still there, Maya knew, but wrapped in the protective cocoon of childhood that would give her time to develop wisdom alongside power. "She's beautiful," Dr. Martinez said, completing the routine checks. "All her reflexes are normal. Breathing is strong. A very healthy baby girl. Healthy. Normal. The words Maya had fought so hard to claim felt like poetry. That first night, Maya sat in the hospital chair holding Elena, watching her sleep. Her daughter's face was peaceful, unmarked by the cosmic burden she'd once carried. When she stirred, it was with the simple need for food or comfort, not the weight of guiding enhanced children worldwide. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, who still had no idea how drastically her life had changed. Thinking of you. Hope you and the baby are both well. She studied the message for a long moment, then typed back, "We're perfect. Thank you for caring." It was true, though perfect meant something different now than it had 2 months ago. Perfect meant Elena's tiny fingers, and her normal heartbeat, and the way she looked at Maya with recognition but not omniscience. Perfect meant the future was unwritten, full of ordinary miracles waiting to unfold. 3 days later, Maya carried Elena into their Denver home, officially beginning the life she'd sacrificed everything to build. The nursery she'd prepared with such care welcomed them both, a space designed for love rather than control, for growth rather than programming. As she settled Elena into her crib for the first time, Maya felt a whisper of the connection they'd once shared. Not the overwhelming flow of cosmic consciousness, but something smaller and more precious, her daughter's simple contentment at being home. "We did it," Maya said softly, watching Elena's eyes flutter closed. "We chose to be human." Outside, December snow began to fall on their quiet neighborhood, blanketing the ordinary world in silence. Maya stood at the nursery window, holding the future in her arms, and knew that sometimes the greatest victory was learning that you already had everything you needed. Elena stirred against her shoulder, and Maya smiled. Their new beginning had finally begun.